questions this way. And so you can also indicate if the question is for a specific person or just open to anyone on the panel. We're going to start by having each of our panelists just give a little overview of some things happening in the community that they want to share, and then we'll go into some questions. So you guys are welcome to use the handheld mic and stay there, or you can come up here to give your overview as well. So we'll start with Ryan.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you for inviting me this morning. Good morning, everybody. Santa Rosa County is a great place to live. It's a great place to work. I have about a 10 to 15 minute state of the county update. I've got about 5 minutes to give it in, so I'll ramble a little bit, just bear with me. But I do want you to take away some facts and figures about Santa Rosa County. We're a very diverse county, obviously, from the beaches in the south end of the county to the farmlands up north. Our diversification has attracted many people throughout the years. If you look back at Santa Rosa County since the turn of the century, so 2000 to today, the population growth has outpaced most other areas of the state. From 2000 to 2010, Santa Rosa County grew about 30%. We went from a relatively small county of 115,000 people to over 150,000 people in 10 years. We had a lull during the recession. We slowed down, and then we picked back up. And we're continuing to grow now, so that we've added another 12,000 residents since 2010. So our growth in the last 15, 16 years has been just shy of 50% in our population. Santa Rosa County is booming. Why is that? Why are so many people moving to Santa Rosa County? Well, we heard it this morning. The people who move away strive to get back to Santa Rosa County. Our quality of life here is something special. Here's something you might not know. Our median household income in Santa Rosa County is $58,000 a year. Median household income. Escambia County is $44,000 a year. Okaloosa County is $55,000 a year. Our median household income is the third highest in the state. There's 67 counties in the state of Florida. The percentage of families in poverty in Santa Rosa County. That's a metric that really kind of tells you some of the struggles that a community faces. Is 7.4%, the fourth lowest in the state. So from an economic perspective, Santa Rosa County is doing good. We're growing jobs and in the workforce. From a local government perspective, we've tried to be as frugal as we can with the revenue that we have. We went from about $58 million in tax revenue in 2007, 2008, down to $43 million in annual tax revenue just a few years ago. We're back up to about $49 million in tax revenue for this fiscal year. So we're collecting $9 million less in property taxes this year than we collected in 2007. We have about 25% fewer workers under the Board of County Commissioners than we did 7 years ago. So government has gotten smaller over the last 7 years. And we've managed to weather the storm during the recession and come out strong. Our property taxes per capita are right at $400, $407 per year per person in Santa Rosa County. That's the cost of admission, if you will, for being a resident here. The state average is $1,017 per person. So we're 60% lower in per capita tax burden than the state average. We have the 5th lowest violent crime rate in the state, 8th lowest overall crime rate. So Santa Rosa County is leading the way in those areas that matter to families: jobs, crime rate, public safety, education. Our school system is consistently ranked near the top of the state, and that's on a county-wide basis. So Santa Rosa County is a wonderful place to live and work. There's a lot going on in Santa Rosa County. If you look back over the last 4 or 5 years in Santa Rosa County, during the recession and then as we came out, there was a slowdown in business, obviously, and in residential development. But I think that, looking back, that period of time has been characterized by infrastructure improvements in the county. Down here in the south end, we had the lighting project on Highway 98, the largest lighting project in the history of the Southern Company, right here in Santa Rosa County. Transformed the drive from Gulf Breeze to Navarre, completely transformed that drive. We have the Highway 98 resurfacing project that incorporated the enhanced shoulders, the 8-foot shoulders with the striped bike lanes. They're going to put raised dividers on there. That's the first project of that kind in the history of the state. They haven't done that anywhere else. We suggested it. FDOT agreed to install it if the county paid for it. So rather than a separate sidewalk, which would have been ideal, from Gulf Breeze to Navarre that cost $17 million, we were able to get those 8-foot shoulders installed on both drive lanes for about $1.3 million. So we're trying to stretch those funds out. Tiger Point Community Center opened up 3 years ago. We have Santa Rosa County Commission meetings in the south end of the county now on a regular basis. That's where I have to be at 9. So we brought local government down to the Navarre and Gulf Breeze area to give you an easier opportunity to come to the commission meetings, voice your concerns, and share in your local government. I think now the next phase that Santa Rosa County is going to enter into is going to be marked by economic development. The industrial park up in East Milton is growing. There are exciting things happening up there. I don't touch on us as much down here in the Gulf Breeze area, but there are good jobs coming to East Milton, and there have been for the past several years. But there are some projects in the works that are really going to make a difference in the north end of the county. In the south end of the county, we have several projects underway, one of which the Publix in the Tiger Point area has already been announced. It's going to be millions and millions of dollars put into our local economy. There's another medical facility that is in the works that will be announced soon in that area, significant medical facility. And then we have another big box retailer that is going into the Midway, Navarre area. So that's 3 multi-million-dollar economic development projects that are going to come out of the ground within the next 18 to 24 months. So I'm excited. Beyond that, I know we're about out of time. Hopefully we'll have to talk about some of the other, we'll have a chance to talk about some of the other things that bring promise to Santa Rosa County. Restore, NERDA, Triumph, Gulf Coast, these are all related to BP oil spill, and they stand to pump tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into the local area for environmental projects, economic development projects in the case of Triumph, and then recreational and quality of life projects from NERDA. We've already started seeing the benefits of those. So if you have any questions about those, we'll take them in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lane. And most of the questions that I've received are for you, so we'll have lots of questions for you in a few minutes. So, Chief Randall, if you'd like to come up and give us a little overview. And if you need more sheets, there are only a few on each table. Raise your hand and Jeremy can bring those to you as well.
Thank you, Chris. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Robert Randall. I'm the police chief of the Gulf Breeze Police Department. I moved here in 1973, and I graduated Gulf Breeze High School, went on through BJC and UWF. I started at the police department in 1980. That was a long time ago. It's been about 36 years that I've been with the police department. It would be pretty safe to assume that I know pretty much what's going on in this area. So one thing that I wanted to touch base on today is very important, and it's probably impacted either you that are sitting in the audience or one of your family members. That is phone scams that have proliferated this area for the last few years. You would think they would die out, but they're not. And they're so bad that we are going to be sending one of our police officers to specialized training for phone scams and the elderly. And when I say elderly, I'm not really meaning ancient here. I really shouldn't even say elderly, because my age bracket, everybody in this room is susceptible to these type of scams. And I'm going to go over 3 of the most prevalent ones that we see. Last month, in 1 week, we had these 3 scams within one 5-day period that people in Gulf Breeze fell victim to. And I'm not just a couple $100. I'm talking many thousands of dollars they fall prey to. First one, this is probably a pretty good time of year to be getting this one, the IRS scam. How many people, show me, raise your hand if you've heard of the IRS scam. Okay, the IRS scam, simply, they call you by name, and they tell you that they are from the IRS, and you owe back taxes, by golly, and you're going to pay them right this second on the phone. You're going to give us a credit card, or else you're going to wire the money, or we are sending agents out to your house to arrest you right now. You think people fall for that?
Yes.
They fall for that. Like I say, last month, we had a person here in the city fall victim to that, several $1,000s. They pay up. No sooner do they pay up, they kind of start thinking, that might not have been such a good idea. This one is going all around the country. IRS is a huge one. You see it on social media. They talk about it probably weekly in the news media. Second one, this one, usually you fall victim to this one for anywhere from $7,000 to $12,000. And I've had good friends of my own that have fallen victim to this. And a lot of times people don't want to report these because they kind of have a sheepish look on their face when they fall for these things, and sometimes they don't want to report it. So this probably is way underreported. This one, if somebody calls you and they pretend to be one of your family members, son or daughter, niece or nephew, it's usually a son or daughter, and they convince you that they're in a foreign country, they're on a trip, and they've been arrested, and they need bond money, and they need it now. You need to wire immediately. You need to go to Western Union. Now, you're sitting there thinking, how in the world would anybody fall for that? They do it all the time. These people are so convincing on the phone. They scour the social media. They target somebody. They learn all about their family. And then they make their move. And usually this is about $7,000 to $12,000 that they request of you to send. Whenever I talk to these victims, they are just flabbergasted that they fell for it. But they all say the same thing. It sounded just like their daughter. She said things that only she would know. Well, it's because it's all on Facebook and everywhere else. So we had the unfortunate folks here in Gulf Breeze fall for this one last month. Like I said, all in a week period, we had these three. And they were out, I think, about $9,000. The friends of mine that fell for this, they lost $9,000. And you'll never see your money back. This is usually in Africa, England, Italy. It's usually not going on in this country. It's all out of the country. Your money's being wired out of the country. When you go to Western Union, it's a done deal then. Now, the third one we had in this 1 week was the medication grant scam. Have any of y'all heard of that one? We had a young lady, matter of fact, I've known her for many years. She called me and said, Robert, I think I did something stupid. And after she told me what she did, I said, you did something stupid. See, this one was, the people called up and said, are you aware that there's a medication grant the government is doing, and we can provide you $20,000 to $30,000 worth of medications free? Now, if you have a lot of medication, everybody in here knows how much medication costs these days. It's extremely expensive. So when somebody dangles that out there, that carrot, a lot of people fall for it. So I asked her, I said, well, how much did they take you for? She said, well, it started out, the fee was like $450 to be able to enter into it, but then they jacked it up and went on up to $600. I said, you didn't pay them, did you? She goes, yes, I did pay them $600, trying to get $20,000 worth of medication. And gone. She's not somebody who had a lot of money, and that to her was going to be a devastating loss for $600. But we see these all the time, very prolific out there. So that's one thing I want to bring everybody's attention. So please be on your guard with that. And then we'll get to some other questions and answers in a little while.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I have a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation that we'll try to condense into the 5 minutes that has been allotted. Before I get started, though, I want to first commend Chief Randall. What we all know here in Gulf Breeze is that we have one of the finest police departments in the entire state, and are so fortunate to have you. Gulf Breeze Police Department has year in, year out, been awarded with highest recognitions for small police departments in the state and the nation. And we are very, very proud to have you. So, Chief, I've said it before and I'll say it again, thank you for the great job you and your guys in ladies.
Thank you, sir.
Now, you know, so I was listening to Robert talk about how he's been with the city 36 years, and I've been associated with the city for 26 years, and looking at the grayness in our hair, and I look at Stephanie Cornell and Jamie Walker. Stephanie, when she was 8, was playing with my daughter on the ball fields, and Jamie grew up across the street from me as a little kid, and now I'm looking at them as grown, vibrant members of our community, and it made me think that's what Gulf Breeze is about. That's why Gulf Breeze is such a great community, is because of the people in this community and the people who stay in our community, like these two young individuals, and get involved with our community. So, you know, again, I look around the room and I see so many people who have done so much for our community, and that's the strength of Gulf Breeze. So to all of you, thanks. Now, a few things that I want to tell you about Gulf Breeze, and then you can ask questions if you want. What's the big issue? Of course, it's the Bay Bridge that's coming in and started working about a year and a half. And there's a number of issues. Recently, there's been a lot of media attention given to the location where the bridge is going to be terminating on the Gulf Breeze side. This is something that's been debated in DOT circles for a long time. The city of Gulf Breeze had a different position on that going back 14 years. Many of you are going to have strong feelings about that issue. If you do, let me encourage you now to get with your local legislative delegation. Representative Broxson, perfect. We've had conversations with him. He is looking into this. We are meeting again next week. Let me encourage you. Anyone who's got feelings about the location, where this is coming in, speak now. Get up there, talk to the delegation, talk with DOT folks, because we're at the 11th and a half hour. Now, as far as the bridge is concerned, there's a couple issues that are of particular importance to the city of Gulf Breeze. Who here uses the boat ramp facility there at Wayside Park? So some of you. Well, the way that the bridge is going to be configured is essentially going to render that boat ramp obsolete because it's going to have traffic tires and you can't use it. So we're trying to get DOT to put in a second boat ramp that is going to be more usable, and we're continuing to have discussions about that. Then as you can see on the photograph there on the east side, that's actually, the picture's not aligned correctly, so it's on the top of the bridge. There's a line of riprap. There's a line of riprap just off the shore where you see the finger pier. And one thing that we've approached DOT about is the concept of trying to reclaim about 20 to 40 feet out in the water just between the current shoreline and where that riprap line is to offset the loss of your park property, to reclaim more green space there. And here's the concept of it. When the current bridge is actually taken down, the rubble's going to have to go somewhere. Well, right now it's going to be shipped out 10, 15 miles out into the Gulf and deposited there, and that's a significant expense. We said, why don't we take that rubble, or at least portions of the rubble, put it there, cover it over, make it park property. DOT, the state, the taxpayers, the contractor all save a lot of money because it's a lot less expensive to do that. Everybody seems excited about that possibility. We've met with some of the contractors. We met just last week with one of the short list of contractors. They're excited about the possibility. And so that's something that we hope to get going with as well. One other thing we're going to mention, since I'm already out of time, as a lawyer, I don't talk not as effective as Lane and talking quickly. There's one program that we're really pleased about that just got going in the city of Gulf Breeze. That's the after-school program. With the middle school letting out at 1:30 in the afternoon, many of you business owners had realized that a lot of kids were just going all around town, loitering around. It was a problem or potential for problems. We would city decided to fund an after-school program where we're encouraging the kids to come to our new great recreation community center, where then they can do a number of things. They can participate in organized sporting events, athletic, recreational events. They can have a study hall. They have arts and crafts, various rooms. And so we've funded that, and we have staff there, and it's been very successful. We're averaging almost 100 kids every day, and there's many people in this room who have helped to support that program. Let's see, St. Anne's Church, a big supporter of it, Optimus Hub, Chick-fil-A, many others. So I want to thank you all for doing that. This is a big help to the community. At this point, I'll stop my 30-minute PowerPoint presentation and wait for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have several questions on the bridge, so I will ask you if you'll take the mic there and continue on with a little bit of that. A couple questions on how the city is specifically preparing more for the new bridge construction, and what is a realistic time delay for commutes to Pensacola and Breeze when that starts?
The time and the traffic are my biggest concern with regards to the bridge. All of us. Shortly after I came into office, we formed a task force of representatives of Santa Rosa County, Gulf Breeze, Escambia, and Santa Rosa. Commissioner Lyncher, myself, and a couple people on the other side of the bridge to address some type of a maintenance of transportation plan, because we wanted to try and minimize on the front end the congestion that I fear is inevitable. And we came up with an excellent set of recommendations. We gave them to DOT, asked that they be included in the design build criteria. Some of them were. We've talked with some of the contractors, and they are even more inclined to include more of those in there. But let me be honest with you. It scares me. It scares me a lot, and I fear that, there's only so much you can do to minimize traffic congestion. We all know that the slightest rubbernecking walking on the bridge causes a significant backup, and we see high winds going in, they're going to be pounded. Remember the 10 construction project after Hurricane Ivan and the backups there. I have to be honest with you, I'm fearful. But we're trying to anticipate that as much as possible, and hopefully the contractor that's selected will implement all of these maintenance and transportation suggestions that our task force came up with. Now, as far as timing, and Lane, if you have some additional information on this, please chime in. What we've been told is, of course, you all know that right now it's already out on the street, the design build contract. The contractors have been shortlisted. There's 5 of them. Next week they have to submit another round of submittals. They should be pulled down even more after that. We're told that they'll be pulled down to 2. They will be submitting, and should be by late summer that there is one who was selected. The construction should start at the beginning of next year. It is a 2 and a 3rd year project to construct the first portion. That would be the southbound portion span. Once that is constructed, all the traffic is going to be moved onto that new span. Then they start taking down the current bridge, and then once that's taken down, they'll build the north span, and the whole thing's supposed to be 5 years and 2 months, I believe.
And for those of you who may have missed last month's breakfast, we did have Carrie Harrell, who is the project manager for the replacement project, as our speaker, and she gave us the whole copy of her presentation, and that is available for download on the Gulf Breeze Chamber website homepage, so feel free to access that. And we've already been communicating with her for her to come back, hopefully in maybe August or September, once the contractor is selected, and we're going to be hosting a public meeting where she can share more information like she did last month with the general public of Gulf Breeze as well.
Thank you. And I don't really have anything to add to what the mayor said. I will say, though, that the mayor really spearheaded the formation of the maintenance and traffic task force through the TPO, and So we did have some good recommendations come out of that task force, and hopefully those will ease the transition during that construction period. But the mayor and the city of Gulf Breeze really led that effort to begin with, so they do deserve thanks for that.
Lane, while you have the mic, this is going to, I think, require some answers from the mayor as well. There was some questions about flooding and rainwater control. We know that that is obviously something that, with the April floods, affected a lot of areas that we didn't think were flood prone. But he's got a slide for it. Look at that, he's ready to go. And so, if you could talk a little bit about the things that the city and the county are doing to mitigate
Sure,
flooding issues.
absolutely. From a county perspective, since the April, May event in 2014, we've pursued and been awarded HMGP grants. These are hazard mitigation grant program dollars. These are monies that we have to match, 25% local, 75% HMGP dollars, to go in and retrofit some of these flood-prone areas. These projects are exceedingly expensive because what we're doing in most of these cases, the worst flooding occurs in areas where there was no thought given to stormwater control when the subdivision was laid out. Holly by the Sea, for example, laid out prior to any state stormwater standards. So it's like building a subdivision on a table where there's no consideration given to drainage, so the water just ponds up. And we have those same situations existing in some of the older subdivisions in the Gulf Breeze area. So when you have to go back in and retrofit a stormwater system into a subdivision, it is incredibly expensive. So we rely on these HMGP grants to do that. We have several projects underway now. Billowwood East, Settlers Colony. There's one up in Pace that was hard hit. Over the last 5 years, we've completed probably $6 million worth of these HMGP projects. The completed projects fared very well during the 2014 storm event. So we have high hopes that the three projects that we have underway down here in South Lincoln County are going to work to transmit that stormwater to some area where it won't do any damage. We just this week received notification, it's actually on our agenda for the commission meeting later today, that we have a really, really good opportunity to expand one of the HMGP projects that's underway at Settlers Colony, Billowwood East. And it could increase the scope of that project 2 or 3 times over what it was originally planned as. So we are working on the stormwater. Again, it's an incredibly difficult fix. In addition to HMGP projects, we have allocated restore dollars to local stormwater fixes. Stormwater is not just it's a problem for the residents, but it also leads to degradation in our local water quality. So we have some stormwater projects that were funded through Restore. We just approved our county's first multi-year implementation plan for the Restore Act. See Dave Robiles here, he sits on that local Restore Council. And that plan has been transmitted to Treasury. We should have approval from Treasury in the April time frame, and then hopefully by late summer, early fall, start seeing the benefits of some of those projects. And again, there are stormwater projects in there. I'll let the mayor talk specifically to that, because a couple of them are located in the city.
Within I think 2 weeks after the April 2014 floods, the city of Gulf Breeze put together a task force made up of 12 of our residents. And you know how I said earlier that it's the people of Gulf Breeze that make this community so good. Well, this is an example. Now, this happened before I was mayor, so I get no credit for this. This is something that the staff and the council at the time put together. And this group of individuals did a tremendous amount of study and has created a lot of benefit as a result. What you can see on this slide here, you can't really see because it's too far away from most of you, but it identifies where the pockets of the real flooding problems were, and then we could start, working on trying to solve. And the task force made recommendations that the council approved each time to make various changes to mitigate these things. And many of these projects have been completed. Some of them are ongoing. Those of you who live behind the school, I'm sure have already been inconvenienced with that. But when that one's completed, that's going to have a tremendous positive effect on mitigating stormwater. What I'm showing you in these slides is just some examples of where some of the work has been undertaken and completed thus far. The city has spent about $2 million so far on stormwater improvements. Some of that is with Lane's help in getting some restore funding for it. See Jim Cox here, who has spent a tremendous amount of time working with individual residents to coordinate the various activities. Now, unfortunately, I don't think there's anything that we can do that's going to completely solve a problem that's created by 24 inches of rain in a 20-hour period. But we have seen, since these projects have been completed, a tremendous difference in Gulf Breeze, where the extent of the problems is significantly less, and now it's down to individual pockets. And when we finish up with these few other ones, hopefully we'll be down to perhaps 90% less of a problem than what we had before.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, we only have about 5 minutes left because the mayor and Lane both have meetings that they have to get to. For any questions that we were not able to get to, I will email those to our panel, and then when I receive responses, we'll make sure we put those questions and the answers up on our website so everyone can get the answers to all of those questions. So, Lane, this last question is directed towards you. You talked about the amount of growth that we've had in Santa Rosa County. And I know the legislative session last year, they made a last-minute adjustment to the size of the small county designation, which gave us at least one more year of reprieve from losing that funding. But if we continue to grow at the rate that we are, it's inevitable that we're going to end up losing that state funding to help with infrastructure projects. Can you please address the need for a local option sales tax, and if that is an option to help mitigate some of that lost revenue from the size of the growth of our county?
Absolutely, and the local option sales tax can be levied only after a referendum. It has to be approved by the voters. It can be, if you look into Escambia County, they have an LOST in place that's been approved time and again by the voters over there. They get about $35 million a year from their local option sales tax. About a third of that is generated by tourists. They use that for infrastructure, roads. They use it for economic development. They use it for public safety, public transportation. It's a huge benefit to a community because they take that $35 million. And I mentioned the HMGP grants before. We have the SCOP grants, the Small County Outreach Program grants. There are a lot of programs out there at the state and federal level that we can take advantage of if we have local dollars to match those federal or state funds. Escambia County is able to take that $35 million and leverage it and go after FDOT grants, state grants, and federal grants, and they turn that $35 million into $50 or $60 or $70 million every year. We have, in the past, many times had to reject grants or turn away grants because we didn't have the local match. I mentioned our revenue, our tax revenue is $9 million less than it was 7 years ago. We don't have the ability to pursue all of the grants that we're eligible for because we simply don't have the matching funds. The local option sales tax would give Santa Rosa County the ability to keep up with our existing transportation network and then add capacity throughout the county to meet the growing demands of our residents. Again, we've grown by 45% since the year 2000. We have fewer county workers now than we did 10 years ago. And we have tens of thousands more residents. And I think the county's still providing a good level of service. So we have to get more efficient, but we also have to come up with a revenue source to fund those improvements. Our property taxes in Santa Rosa County fund about 53% of your local government. The state average is lower than that. The state average is more in the 40% range. Are we paying a lot of property taxes? No. Our property tax burden is still, the overall tax burden is still 60% less than the state average. Remember, $400 versus $1,000. The difference is these other counties have a local option sales tax. They have impact fees. They have user fees that Santa Rosa County does not currently employ. So we really run the budget on a shoestring and we haven't expanded the revenue sources. So the local option sales tax would, if we did a 1 cent local option sales tax in Santa Rosa County, it would generate $14 million a year. The city of Gulf Breeze would get $1 million out of that, roughly. The city of Milton would get a little over $1 million out of that. So the county's net would be about $12 million a year. Our tax revenue is $50 million this year. So we would get an additional 25% to go towards, and it's earmarked. We can't use the local option sales tax for operating money. It would go towards infrastructure, public safety, economic development, and that's it. It's not a slush fund for a local government to use. It's earmarked for specific uses. It would literally transform Santa Rosa County. If you talk about $12 million a year going towards our roads, going towards drainage projects, there's a drainage project now we can't apply for because we don't have the matching money. We have a $5 million opportunity and it costs us $1.25 million to go after that. That's a great deal. You invest $1.25 million and you get back $5 million, but we don't have $1.25 million free in our budget to go after it. The local option sales tax would literally transform Santa Rosa County. We would have the ability to improve our road network throughout the county. It would be a great boon to quality of life that we enjoy. So there will be a local option sales tax referendum on the ballot later this year. We're going to get a lot more information out to people and let you know exactly what we plan to do with that if it's approved. Again, we hear Santa Rosa County doesn't need higher taxes. That's a common refrain at the commission meetings, but the simple facts don't bear that out. We are not overtaxed in Santa Rosa County. We don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem. Now you can look at our budget or any budget and you can find a project here or there that you don't agree with. I can find projects that I don't agree with. But overall, we run a very lean budget and we have to grow with the county. And right now we're not doing that. So the local option sales tax hopefully will be supported later this year and you will see Santa Rosa County meet its potential.
Thank you, Mike. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for coming and giving us an update on all of the things that we always have questions about in Gulf Breeze, Santa Rosa County. We really appreciate